here we are 1 year into Joe Biden's presidency, and things have only gotten worse. Joining me now, Ben Shapiro, host of The Ben Shapiro Show and author of Authoritarian Moment. Ben, you know, it seems like the president won his election because of he was said to be the one that could fight the virus. That has been a lie. I don't think anybody really had the tools to fight the virus. It is a virus. You can only mitigate things by giving states the tools. So I guess my question is, if he won because of that, will he lose because of that as well?
I mean, I think the answer is yes. The president overpromised and underdelivered. He made a promise that was a complete lie, and that was that he was going to be able to shut down the virus. As you say, no one has the capacity to shut down this virus. As we've seen in states that have extraordinarily high percentages of their citizens vaccinated, you're still seeing huge spikes. Now, what's amazing about all of this that we're seeing right now is that people are panicking over Omicron. Omicron is not causing mass death. It is not causing mass hospitalization. In fact, the problems that we are having in terms of hospital shortages are largely due to the vax mandates and a lot of healthcare workers who are not going back to work because they're not allowed to work. The reality is that in half the country right now, people are living normal lives. They're going about their daily business. And in another half of the country, and in the halls of the White House, precisely the opposite is true. There's a mandate for everyone to panic, no matter whether the data supports the panic or not.
Yeah, Ben, I want to talk about the kids because we've seen the mental health effects. But I think it's quite absurd that not only are we shutting down classrooms, which we know what could happen to our kids mentally, but the notion that they need to somehow put a mask on between bites, I mean, this is just ridiculous at this point. There's no science to support it, by the way.
No, there's not. I mean, there's literally no science to support the idea that children need to mask up or ever had to mask up because children have not been harmed by this virus in mass numbers. Since the beginning of the pandemic, less than 700 people in the United States below the age of 18 have died of COVID, and most of those people, the vast majority of them, had significant underlying conditions. The idea that kids are at high risk or that kids are going to threaten other people because they're not masked is absurd. Not only that, it's fun to watch the left suddenly realize things that many of us have been saying for quite a while, such as cloth masks. The evidence is not there when it comes to the passage of Delta or Omicron, such as the idea that schools need to remain open because it's dangerous for kids for schools not to remain open. Welcome to the party, guys, but it seems like you only changed your minds about the minute you guys got COVID. Until then, it was everybody has to shut down, except for you guys when you're vacationing down in my home state of Florida.
You know, Ben, I'm no rocket scientist. You're a smarter guy than me. I didn't go to law school like you, but it's almost as if the government can't solve this crisis. Like they don't have the ability to do it. And I think they knew this to begin with, but they lied to the American people.
Well, I think the politicians generally have an incentive to lie, that they can control things that they simply cannot control. But of course, all that the politicians could do was make sure that you had the availability of the vaccines. And they did that. And really, good for them on that. And now you need to leave everyone the hell alone and let us all go about our daily business and live our lives. Otherwise, you've created a box of your own making. There's a reason that red states, all the best states in the country in terms of unemployment rate, are red states. All the worst states in terms of unemployment across the country are all blue states. That is not a coincidence. That is a reflection of policy, not a reflection of COVID.
You know, Ben, I think the problem the Democrats have right now is, although the government can't solve this, this goes against everything that they believe in. Like, the left believes that it is government's duty to solve problems. And if they can't come up with the answer, they better fake it until they can make it. It's a lot when it comes to the gun violence that's happening around the country. Like, you can pass all the laws you want to. It's not going to stop a criminal from going out there and finding a gun and killing someone. That's just the reality. No one wants to really say that because we're supposed to have an answer to things. Is that what you're seeing as well, is that there is this conflict between what they know to be true and their ideology, almost as if they're married to that ideology?
Well, they are certainly married to the ideology. The government is the solution for all problems. And that's why they believe that the only people who got COVID and were suffering from COVID were all of the bad people, all the people who voted for Trump, all the people who live in red states, who weren't paying attention to their authoritarian diktats. If you didn't pay attention, you sinned, and COVID came for you. Well, now COVID has come for everyone because it turns out you could have done all the right things, and you're still maybe getting a breakthrough case of COVID. And so now they've shifted their minds, except many of them have not. I'd look for more lockdowns in the near future. You mentioned Eric Adams. Eric Adams says he's going to double down on Bill de Blasio's vax mandate in the city.
He did say that. Ben, I want to pivot to something else that's happening in New York. Apparently, I got COVID in Dallas about a week ago. Some say it was a false positive test because the day after I tested, then from a miracle standpoint, it just disappeared. But when I did have COVID, I asked my doctor, could I have some of the testing treatment, monoclonal antibodies? In New York, they're saying that if you're a person of color, then they're just going to give it to you. The doctor denied it to me in Texas because they said I was just too healthy. I didn't show any symptoms or anything like that. So other people needed it. Okay, I'll take that. But if I would have requested that in New York, I would have got it. Isn't this illegal?
I mean, it certainly should be. According to the New York Post, the Department of Health in New York is saying that they're now taking race into account in determining how to tranche out things like monoclonal antibodies. That seems like a basic violation of the Civil Rights Act, but apparently, so long as you're on the left, it doesn't matter how many laws you break. I mean, after all, the law doesn't matter. All that matters is that you're right, and we know you're right because you're on the left.
Yeah, but Ben, this goes back to public health and safety. If someone needs it, then they should be able to get it. I understand.
It's never been about public health and safety. Come on. It's never been about public health and safety. It's always been about the essence of believing that you can control everything around you and that the virus is sort of your weapon in exerting that control. Listen, this stopped being about public health and safety the minute in June of 2020 they decided that you could not go out and rally against COVID lockdowns, but you could go out and rally for George Floyd. The minute that happened, it was very clear this is no longer a public health issue. This is a political issue.
I'm just curious, Ben, because we see that when it comes to a public health crisis, that people were more likely to comply. If they said it was health, then the doctors had all the authority. Do you see them using that same strategy with other things they want to accomplish?
Absolutely. I mean, the left constantly needs an emergency so that they can frighten you into doing things that you don't want to do. Frankly, I think that's what they're doing this week with the January 6th coverage. I think that the idea is January 6th is the worst thing that ever happened in the history of humanity. Therefore, you have to let us kill the filibuster and completely restructure federal voting law. I mean, that is the idea. It's always a crisis. Health is going to be the one that's most obvious and most available and the most dangerous for them to use because obviously everybody cares about their health. I have 3 kids. I care about the health of my kids, just like everybody else cares about the health of their kids. So a lot of their sort of crisis-driven politics doesn't work, but when it comes to health, it absolutely does. And you're seeing it continue to work, even though, again, the threat from Omicron, particularly if you're vaccinated, and certainly if you're vaccinated and boosted, is extraordinarily minimal.
Yeah. Dangerous. Thank you, Ben Shapiro.